Kia ora tātou. I think we might start now. My name is Jackie Hay. I'm the Senior Audience Development Advisor at Creative New Zealand. And for those of you who don't know, Helen Bartle is on maternity leave, eagerly awaiting her next project to pop out, and I am looking after her role until February. But today I'm really delighted to welcome you all for the latest webinar in our Optimise series, Developing an E-Newsletter That Works, and a very, very special welcome to John Voigt from Lynch Squared in Chicago, who's going to be sharing his expertise with us. We're really delighted that you could make it, John. What time is it in Chicago?
It's about 5:30 p.m. here today.
Okay, so not too
actually
bad.
Yesterday in your case.
Yeah, exactly. So Vicki will start the webinar, and then John will follow with some really fantastic tips, and then after that, as usual, in the middle we'll have a bit of a Q&A, and then they'll pick up the presentation for the last half, and then we can we'll have sort of 10 top tips at the end and wrap up in the last few minutes. So right now, I'd just like to hand over to Vicki.
Thanks very much, Jackie, for that welcome, and welcome, John, and thank you again for being with us today. I just wanted to check, Jackie, are you all seeing the PowerPoint at this point?
I am seeing the PowerPoint.
Great. Okay, so we're ready to go. So e-newsletters are a really important tool for arts organisations, and there is a great interest in how to use this means of communications effectively. And this is one of the topics that everyone voted for when we did a little survey as to what people would like to learn more about in the Optimise series. And so we thought we would do a webinar that was focused purely on this topic. Very fortunate to have John Voigt with us. John works with an award-winning Chicago-based web development company, as Jackie mentioned, Lynch Squared, and I've been fortunate to work with Lynch Squared on a couple of projects over the last few years, and they have created an email marketing solution called Mail2, which for those of you who have Tessitura will know that it links in with the Tessitura system. But the reason that's very helpful for us to have John on this webinar because he's working every day with arts organisations internationally who are building email campaigns in the system. And he has the best job title ever, Client Onboarding Specialist. I love it, John. But what this absolutely means is that John is working with arts organisations as they start to plan their email communications, and that includes their e-newsletters. So he's got some real sort of from the coalface examples to share today. Okay, so there's a picture of John, so you know what he looks like now. So how we're going to structure this webinar today, we're building it into 3 sections, and so the first section is a little bit about really what defines an e-newsletter. There's a lot of confusion, I think, between what is an e-newsletter and what is an e-flyer, and you hear all sorts of other terminologies, including e-blasts and e-zines. So just a little bit of clarity as to what we're talking about when we talk about an e-newsletter, and some of the things that an e-newsletter can do for you as an arts organisation, and some of the elements of great e-newsletters. And that will lead into a section that John will lead, which is some best practice examples, and why they're best practice and what sort of email marketing features are being used internationally in campaigns now. And once we've had a question and answer session, we'll get into just some steps to planning your e-newsletter. So I pulled out a few definitions that were floating around the web about e-newsletters, and there's kind of a common theme. So we've got here electronic daily, weekly or monthly newsletters emailed to subscribers and or downloadable from an organisation's website. Another one, a digital magazine or a newsletter delivered by email or readable through the internet. And another one, an email newsletter is a message that is sent out to subscribers, typically on a regular interval. Email newsletters may be sent daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or even annually. So the common things that are coming out here is that this is a regular communication that people subscribe to, and that it's news. It's a newsletter, it's a publication, it's a piece of editorial, it's something regular with a name, regular features, etc. So how this differs from e-flyers is that an e-flyer is something that is a lot more promotional. So an e-flyer is a single communication that is probably likely to be sales-oriented or at least oriented to some sort of call to action. So it's straight to the point, simple, and you're likely to have an action button at the bottom that says, you know, buy now or donate now, that type of thing. Whereas an e-newsletter is more of an editorial. So when I'm working with arts organisations and they're planning their e-newsletter, I always encourage them to think of it as another publication in their suite of publications. So particularly several years ago, people, you know, some organisations had a glossy magazine for subscribers and they may have had a sort of print newsletter that was sent out. And I would say, well, an e-newsletter is part of that, really. It's another publication. It's branded. It has a name, and it's something that people come to recognise and expect. So it has a wider focus. So it's not specific to an event. What it is something that, particularly if you're say, a festival, or your seasons are spread apart, or you don't have regular activity going on, they're a great way to keep connection going with your organisation. So the content of the e-newsletter is a lot wider than an e-flyer. It may have in-depth features, and these features will give unique insights and bring audiences closer to your organisation. So, for example, this National Gallery communication is an e-flyer. It's just about an exhibition, and you'll see there's a strong call to action, find out more and book tickets. Likewise, Alvin Ailey American Dance Theatre, this is more about donating, and it's sort of a call for support, and so again it has a really clear call to action, I want to help, and that's it. It's simply an image, some text, and a call to action. And the sketchbook project, this is more around casting a vote, inviting people to vote for their preferred option. So again, it doesn't matter if you're not selling tickets, an e-flyer can be used for all sorts of things, but it's a call to action. Whereas a newsletter, this is some of you will have received the recent Optimizer newsletter from us around the benchmarking project. A newsletter is a lot more editorially focused, and you'll see that there's, you know, a nice, chatty, personalised introduction. This is the Australian Ballets Behind Ballet e-newsletter, and you'll see, you know, they're talking here about get a glimpse into our behind-the-scenes activity, and features about all sorts of things related to the organisation. So their dancers, you know, I just got their latest one, and it was about their dancers being on tour in New York, and some historical information. It features interviews with people working with the company, that type of thing. I circled the top left one because they do a really good job of integrating their e-newsletter with their other digital channels, but I'll come back to that a bit later on. And an e-newsletter may even have, well, it should have a kind of a list of contents, because you'll have a number of features within it, so people can click from the top down to the feature that they want to read. So you can see from this the difference between an e-flyer and an e-newsletter is an e-flyer is very much a promotional call to action with a particular single message, and an e-newsletter is an editorial publication as part of your suite of publications. So I like this quote, which said the primary purpose of an email newsletter is to build upon the relationship of the company with their customers and subscribers. So it's a long-term relationship building tool, and that's where e-newsletters can be particularly valuable to arts organisations. So some of the things that e-newsletters can do for you. For your organisation, it can build awareness of your activities beyond the most obvious. So if you're an organisation that, say, puts on concerts, but you have a lot of education activity going on, you have a lot of development activity, fundraising activities that you want to make people aware of, and e-newsletter is a great way to kind of make people aware of everything, the rich activity that is going on within your organisation. They're great for building loyalty, so people come to expect the e-newsletter. It might come monthly, and they start to get a real insight into what your company is doing and your personality, because that can really come through in an e-newsletter. And as a result, they're great community building tools. And they are a way for, I know that there are now many more tools that enable dialogue, but e-newsletters can still be really great for a two-way dialogue. For your audiences, they offer insights into your organisation that they may not get elsewhere, so they can feel quite special. And information, they're great for delivering information, obviously, and because you're not limited to just one key message, there's a lot you can share about your organisation through them. And they're a great engagement tool for audiences. So audiences, you're often driving from the e-newsletter, you're driving people to more information about perhaps your art or the creative process, that type of thing. So they're a great way to build that engagement that we all want to with our audiences. And also for your partners, e-newsletters can be great ways of offering exposure to them in a way that's not overtly commercial. So if you're working, with major sponsors or with funders, with collaborative partners, it's a great way through stories and interviews to showcase their involvement with your company or organisation. And it gives them association with your organisation and more reach, and it enables connections to your audience. This is keynotes from the New Zealand String Quartet, and some of you know I've worked with the New Zealand String Quartet, and this was a new email newsletter that they developed a couple of years ago. And recently they did a survey to their audiences, the readers of keynotes, to see how they felt about the newsletter, because there's a fair amount of investment that goes into it. And it was just interesting to see what people came out with. They got a very positive response in the survey. But people talked about the usefulness of the information that they received on a regular basis, so it really kept the quartet, the New Zealand String Quartet, top of mind. And I liked this one, that the quartet look and are very approachable and down to earth. And so the newsletter has enabled the New Zealand String Quartet to break down those barriers between them and their audience by giving some behind-the-scenes stories, enabling the quartet members to share, what is meaningful about their work and aspects of their daily life and how they prepare for concerts and that sort of thing. And very importantly, another matter I consider important to this publication is that it's not overblown. It disdains hype. And one of the most important elements of an e-newsletter is that it's not overly promotional. So it's a way to be real and genuine and get across the true voice of your organisation and talk in a genuine way to some of your most valuable supporters, really. Because if someone's given you their email address and enabling you to send them a regular newsletter whether it's every 2 weeks, whether it's monthly, whether it's 2 monthly, that's a real commitment from them. And it's an indicator of how engaged they're feeling with you. I really like the sign-up, e-news sign-up page for the Natural History Museum. The way it explained what people would, the benefits that people would get from receiving the newsletter. It's packed with information about exhibitions and events taking place throughout the museum. And it's delivered directly to your inbox once a month. And with all email communications that you're sending out, it's really important to clarify what the benefits are to the reader. And when you're actually inviting sign-up, to really sell that up, make it clear what people are going to get as benefits from receiving it. So just one thing to add is when I'm working with organisations and we're planning their email communications, I really do encourage them to segment out their types of communication. So to think, which on a regular basis are we going to be sending out? So we're going to have an e-newsletter, which is an editorial style publication. We're going to have e-flyers that relate to the events that we're running. And then we may also have other forms of email communication, whether we do regular surveys, whether we do triggered emails, which are emails sent out based on behaviour that people take in your database. So whether it's that they've signed up for your e-news or whether it's that they've bought a ticket or attended an event, you may do triggered emails that relate to that behaviour automatically go out. And you may also do other sort of emails like, say, Steppenwolf Theatre in Chicago do really great emails leading up to a production where they give you a lot of insights to the creative process. And they're not exactly e-newsletters because each one has a single focus. And they're kind of, I guess, they're e-insights, that type of thing. So it's really good when you're doing your planning to really define the different types of communication. And it is, as this quote says, it's about providing value. And your e-newsletter is an opportunity to provide real value via email, something of real relevance, something that's just not selling to them. And you'll notice from your email stats that if you're really truly doing this, your open rates will just gradually increase over time as people spread the word and people sort of start to get excited about receiving your emails. So the key elements of successful e-newsletters, in my view, first of all, consistency and regularity. And by that I mean, first of all, delivery times. So if you say you're going to send out a monthly e-newsletter, send it out monthly. It's a really good idea to send it out the same day of the week, the same time of the day, each time. But the look and feel is consistent as well. So you've got a number of features. And if you think of it like a magazine, so when you pick up a magazine and you open it, you get the contents page, and you always get, say, you know, the interview at the front, and you get the main feature article, and you get the horoscopes at the back, whatever. Whatever features you decide to deliver on a regular basis through your e-newsletter, make sure they're the same each time, but the individual subject titles, the titles of the features change out, of course. But the features are always called the same thing, and they always sit in the same position in the e-newsletter. So that's a sort of a design and format issue as well as content issue. The second is that your content is relevant and valuable, and what that means depends completely on what is relevant and valuable for your likely readers in your organisation. But generally, people really love to learn more about the work that you're producing. They love interviews with people, whether you do a sort of 3 questions, 5 questions, 10 questions interview with someone who's involved with a company or an artist, or whether it be a visiting creative team, etc. People love that stuff. So whatever e-newsletter I produce, when I do that kind of short interview with someone who's involved with a company, it's always the feature that has the highest readership. But I'll leave John to talk more a little bit about, you know, the valuable content in e-newsletters, because I'm sure he's going to be covering that. I did mention not to be overtly promotional, so really make it clear when the email is a promotional e-flyer versus an editorial e-newsletter. The reader-friendly format, so that's things like, and I know John will cover this as well, but making it really easily scannable. So not putting all your content in the body of the email so people have to scroll for miles. What you want is for them to be able to scan across the content and then click for more information and to go into further depth if they wish. And ultimately your goal probably is to drive them into your website or your blog or some other digital channel where you can provide them with a lot more depth. So also in terms of being scannable, a table of contents is a really good idea if you've got a number of features in the e-newsletter so people can see straight away at the top what's in there. And having a range of styles of features, but as I said, some regularity between each e-newsletter you send out. And a sense of community, so I think that comes through in your tone of voice, it comes through in acknowledging the readers, and also sometimes publishing reader-generated content. So you may ask a question. I think when I was at New Zealand Opera, we invited people to ask the director their burning questions about opera. So people would send in questions and then we would feature one each month. And when people win a prize through your e-newsletter, making sure that you acknowledge in the following issue who won the prize, so that they really know that the stuff is happening behind the scenes and you're receiving their responses. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to John. So Sabrina, I'll have you hand the baton to John. And he's going to talk about what arts organisations are doing internationally and the work that they're doing on a day-to-day basis over there in Chicago.
Great, thank you, Vicki. And welcome everyone, and thank you for allowing me to participate in the webinar today. What I've done is I've prepared some examples that hopefully exemplify a number of the key points that Vicki just made. I want to walk you through those examples and then kind of point out some commonalities between those 5 examples that sort of button that all together and provide you with some insight on real life examples and how arts organizations are applying a number of the things that Vicki has touched on today with good newsletters. That being said, let me move on to my slide here. 5 real-life examples. I picked what I think is a pretty good representational cross-section of the different types of organizations that I work with as part of the Mail 2 team. Goodman Theater is in Chicago. Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra, a little bit closer to you, although Perth is a heck of a long way from Auckland, I have discovered. West Australia Symphony Orchestra, San Francisco Ballet, and Oregon Shakespeare. They all have what I consider to be really decent e-newsletters. Do they all hit every aspect of every positive key element right on the head? No, there's always room for improvement, but I think they're really indicative of what good quality e-newsletters are about. So that being said, I am going to share my screen, and we're going to actually take a look at some online versions of these e-newsletters so I can scroll through them. And my screen is loading now. And Vicki, can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, and the first one has just come up.
Okay, great. This is Goodman Theater in Chicago. This is their stage notes. It's a monthly newsletter, goes out to about 70,000 readers on a monthly basis. And it contains a lot of the elements that Vicki talked about. One that jumps out at me right off the bat is on stage and behind the scenes, developing that sense of community through the newsletter. We're going to take you in behind the scenes of the Goodman Theater, and through that they have they have a show called Crowns coming up, and they have a number of events that they are promoting, free events in particular, to kick that off. They really downplay the promotional aspect of it. They do put special offers in a small column on the left, but by and large, they promote exploring more about the events that they have coming up through more buttons, an explore button behind another production of the Jungle Book coming up, where it actually links out to a video on their website. And also, they do a little spotlight on preferred partners, in this case a restaurant as well. Again, not overly promotional, elements of making you feel like you're getting an inside look into the Goodman Theater, and it exposes you to some of the other experiences that go along with the productions that they're putting out. I'm going to move on to Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra, Backstage Pass, your behind-the-scenes link to the MSO. Well, they have the same kind of sense of belonging, pulling you into the organization. They have a calendar that they put out, a calendar section, to kind of give you a preview of what's coming up within the organization. Again, it's not overly promotional. I like their use of little calendar icons to provide a visual reference of things that are coming up. Outside of an actual concert at the MSO, they're promoting a number of events that go beyond the actual concerts, and a good use of linking out to additional information on the events that they are sponsoring. San Francisco Ballet is another great example. You can see that they lead off with a nice, big, bold image every edition. They've done a lot in terms of styling their newsletter to match their web presence, rounded corners, which can be a little tricky to do in HTML email, but we've helped them come up with a way to do that. They lead off with their table of contents. A number of sections are promotional. However, you get down a little bit further into the body of it. Summer tour update, link to a video, Their company is on tour in Hamburg and Moscow. And then each month they also spotlight one of their artists within the company, and they link out to a video on that. So again, a combination of information, insider information, into the organization, what's going on with it outside of just the performances, as well as additional human interest type pieces that do very well. Also, Symphony E-News, another nice example. They lead off every month with an editorial section. They do a little bit of promotional of what's coming up or what's on currently. They do featured stories, and they lay this out the same way every month. Introduction to their next principal conductor. They usually tie in a holiday piece, something about their youth programs. There's a nice kind of insider piece, WASO in rehearsal, where they're inviting people into rehearsal sessions, and a few other performance type promotional pieces as well. And finally, one more example here. Oregon Shakespeare Festival on the bricks. What I do like about this is if you've ever been to Oregon Shakespeare Festival, you know that facade there in their header image, that's something that you instantly identify with. You know that as being Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and they've used that facade of their building to make a connection in their e-newsletter presence. Very much editorial in nature. They do a little bit of promotion of like their gift shop, promoting of upcoming performances, their video series. They link into TripAdvisor as well. It's really mostly editorial type content and information regarding events that they have coming up across the year. So those are 5 examples that I thought really kind of touched on the key elements that Vicki brought up earlier. And I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint presentation now. And within the PowerPoint, I just have screen caps of those. So when I look at those 5 examples, what are 5 common elements in those examples that really jump out at me as being consistent across the board with them? Why did I select those 5 pieces to share with you? First thing that jumps out to me in any newsletter, it should be instantly recognizable in terms of its branding. All 5 of those e-newsletters very much match their web presence that they have. San Francisco Ballet in particular, the navigation buttons at the top of their e-newsletter match the navigation buttons on their website. It's instantly recognizable. So as soon as a reader opens it, they go, oh, I see who this is from. I understand how it's laid out. I'm familiar with it. Instant recognition of their branding and the way they lay it out is consistent. Content is balanced between promotional and informational. And again, a real strong point between e-flyer and e-newsletter is you're engaging your audience, you're pulling them in and inviting them to be part of your organization by giving them more than just please buy a ticket or please consider donating. It's about that building that engagement, that sense of belonging with your readership. Yes, absolutely, we still want people to buy tickets and come to our events, but by and large, that's secondary in an e-newsletter. Big thing with working with these 5 clients, clean and reusable layouts. I kind of have some inside knowledge here about how those newsletters are built. I understand the templating system that they're built on, and I know from that they're able to grab those on a monthly basis and go in, swap out their content, swap out their images, build their newsletter. They don't have to start from scratch every month. And the layout that they have is consistent and clean from month to month to month, or from week to week to week. All of them, if you look into those, if you take a deeper dive into the content that they present, they all have a very definite tone and a sense of belonging to readers. They're inviting you in. Even the titles of them are inviting you in. But the overall tone of the articles and the pieces that they put into their e-newsletters are all about that engagement, are all about making them part of that particular organizational family, if you will. Another big thing that you don't see in the actual content in those newsletters is consistent delivery cadence, monthly or bi-weekly. If I look back at the send history on all of those newsletters, all of them are delivered within about a 2 or 3 day window within a given month. And that's very important. People come to expect when that e-newsletter will hit their inbox in an email at a certain time of the month, or a certain, or whatever cadence it might be, weekly or so forth. And if I go back and I look at that, it's not apparent obviously in the content, but I can see when those organizations are sending those, and they're all very dedicated to sending those on a specific day of the month or at a specific cadence, so that's really important. At this point, we'll come back on some questions if we have specific content questions on those examples. But what are some trends that I'm seeing as far as email marketing goes from sort of the position that I'm in working with a variety of different arts organizations? There are certain things that are emerging right now, or that are very important to arts organizations, and I want to call those out and kind of connect those back with what you can do, or things that you can think about as you work on setting up an e-newsletter program or modifying what you're doing today. One thing that is extremely important for my clients is flexibility and reusability of the e-news layouts. We touched on that a little bit earlier on. Vicki talked about that. Having that consistent template, that consistent look and feel, having the ability to go back and reuse that same template, that's very important, especially when you want to keep on a cadence. We're all time compressed. We all have a lot to do, and being able to leverage templating and save as functions so you can reuse things over and over is very important. But one thing that I've heard consistently from clients when it comes to things like e-newsletters is get efficient with the fundamentals of sending those out. That opens you up so you can do more definitive, maybe remarketing efforts, that type of thing. But getting efficient with sending out your regularly scheduled e-newsletters, that's important. Once you're able to get that cadence and stay on that cadence, not only is your readership getting used to that cadence and the quality and the content that they're receiving from your organization, but also organizationally, when you get into that rhythm, it really helps you manage your process. Something that a number of clients, email marketing clients of ours, are doing is multivariate split testing. Those of you that aren't familiar with this, sometimes called A/B split testing, but essentially what multivariate split testing is taking a sampling of your target audience. Let's say you have 100,000 people that are on your mailing list to receive your e-newsletter, and you make one split that maybe goes to 500 of those, a second split that goes to another 500, and a third split that goes to another 500. You deploy those email campaigns, and then based on open rates, click-through rates, that type of thing, the rest of that audience is reserved for the winning campaign. So you sample it, you test it, whichever one drives the best open or click-through rate, in some cases revenue, the remaining part of your readership receives that winning campaign or that winning version of it. And some things that are being tested by my clients are sent from, and they are testing to find the most recognizable name from their organization. As you well know, within the arts world, we have a tendency to be a little bit acronym happy, so like West Australia Symphony Orchestra, WASO, and so on the line. That's at the San Francisco Ballet. Does it make sense to do that within the send from line within the email campaign, or should it come from the full name, or should it come from maybe the principal conductor of a symphony, that type of thing. So they're testing that send from to find the most recognizable name that helps them find the highest open rates based on that. Subject line, a lot of them test their subject line. And typically the lesson learned there is shorter is better. We find that overly clever, long, overly clever subject lines really don't help you very much. Short and to the point tends to get a higher open rate. Send time is very interesting. I've been asked a lot of times, what's the best time and day of the week to send an email campaign? And it really turns out, after working with a number of clients doing A/B split testing, there is no one answer for that. It really varies by the nature of your organization and the nature of your readership. So I have a number of organizations that have gone through and tried different days of the week, different times of the day, and there is really no set pattern. One organization in particular here in the Fritz Eckert Hall, which is a large venue in the state of Florida, they tried different times of the day. They started testing at first thing in the morning, before people come in and leave their email at work or whatever. They tried at noon, they tried at 3 in the afternoon, and then they tried again at 6 p.m. in the evening. And what they found was midday tended to be the best, and then they boiled it down even tighter. So they went to 11 o'clock to noon to 1 to 2. And they have continued to ratchet that in to find the best time of the day and the best day of the week to send on, all by multivariate split testing to find your own optimal send time. One thing that I see a lot of clients starting to rely on more heavily now is detailed contact engagement reporting. So the number of email systems, email marketing systems out there like Mail2, the amount of information that flows back into your system based on opens, clicks, sharing, and that type of reader behavior, you now have a much better picture of who, right now at the individual email address level, who is engaged with your organization. Mail2, we have what we call a 1 to 5 star rating system. I'm not quite sure about other email systems, but we basically have a weighted model within ours that for every open, click, or share, it creates kind of a tallied score, and then it supplies kind of a 1 star to 5 star rating to individual patrons. And we can use that information. We can pull what are called saved searches and find creative ways to reward our highest engagers or our social butterflies. We're able to look at, oh, geez, this person has shared the last 5 e-newsletters on their Twitter feed, and we can also see that 500 other people have done that same thing. And we can then market specifically to them. We can say, thank you for being a social butterfly. On our behalf, we appreciate that. Here's some type of promotion or, again, something to pull them deeper into the involvement with the organization. Some other things that are being done by organizations are smaller insider e-newsletters, things like donor e-newsletters or subscriber e-newsletters, but they're driving down to a much more finite, highly engaged audience, and then also follow-up campaigns along that line. Thank you for sharing. Here's a promotion for helping us out and being one of our most engaged patrons and for being a proponent of what we're all about. So if you have the ability to drill into that and then reward those behaviors, that's something that we find very valuable. It's kind of like, do I want to spend a whole bunch of my time trying to market to people that are marginally engaged, or do I want to really get my hands on and around who the most engaged people in my patron base are and market to them? So it helps you really kind of pick your battles in terms of where you want to put your efforts. And then also automate what makes sense. With Mail 2, we are able to automate. We integrate pretty tightly with Tessitura, so this is somewhat related only to those Tessitura organizations out there. But we are able to automate things like pre-show reminders and post-show surveys. So things that normally take a lot of time for marketing, customer service or departments to take care of, if you are automating those things like pre-show reminders or triggered campaigns, things like that, that is saving those departments time for deeper analysis and more targeted marketing methods, digging into engagement data and getting the most out of their most engaged patrons. So automate what makes sense, find ways to streamline your process, get good at doing the fundamental things so you can get into really mining that content engagement piece and connecting with those that are most valuable to the organization. At this point, I think we're going to open it up to Q&A, correct?
That's correct. I mean, we don't have any questions I can see as yet, but people just please know that you can just in the chat box or the Q&A box just state that you have a question, and then Sabrina can kind of bring you online. You can ask the question verbally. But John, I have a couple of prompt questions for you, really. What I'm seeing in my work is that generally the open rates for e-newsletters are higher than for e-flyers. So when recipients come to get to know an e-newsletter and what they're going to expect from it, and they enjoy reading it, and so when it arrives it's recognizable and they know it's a newsletter, that the open rates are a bit higher, quite a bit higher in some cases. Is that something you're finding across your clients?
Yes, absolutely. It's a great question, Vicki. Yeah, and since we're able to track data at a very finite, down to the email address level, we can literally see when somebody opened a given campaign at a certain time in a certain time zone, that type of thing. Absolutely. And you're spot on. Generally speaking, e-newsletters are, let me back up. Overall, the performing arts industry, from an email marketing standpoint, we're very fortunate to have very engaged leaderships. Our open rates are a lot higher than a lot of other industries. Typical open rates for something like the Goodman's, Stage Notes, MSO's Backstage Pass, etc., is well over 20, somewhere in the range of 22 to 27% on average, which is very, very high. And that's probably on the order of 1.5 to 2 times higher than a standard e-flyer that is promoting sales tickets to one show or one event, et cetera, that type of thing. So absolutely, we definitely see a much higher open rate, much higher engagement rate with those organizations that take on an e-newsletter versus just, driving e-flyers out the door to their entire email database.
And that's interesting, that open rate aligns with the Optimizer benchmarking project, our initial findings so far that are across the board, and that's not segmenting by type of email. The average open rate is around 25.6%. But I have seen e-newsletters that are getting over 50%, so that's pretty astounding, really. Yeah,
that's very high, yeah.
Yeah. So we have some questions here from people. The first is from Iona McNaughton. Now, she's asked the question by text, but Iona, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question yourself? And if not, I'm happy to read it out. Are you there, Iona?
Yeah, what do I push the...
We can hear you now, so that's great.
Okay, cool, good. I'll put my hand up. My question is actually a lot of e-newsletters have click here to unsubscribe right at the very top of before you get into the e-news. That makes it awfully easy to do that. Do you think that's good practice? Or do you think you should bury that sort of lower down, giving people that option to unsubscribe? Yeah.
I can take that one. I actually, if you go back and look at the San Francisco Ballet one, there's actually two unsubscribe links within it. My feeling is this: to me, I don't think it matters much where you put it. If somebody does not want to receive that email communication from you, they're going to find the unsubscribe link, or they're going to lodge a complaint. And in the case of the U.S., we actually have to supply that unsubscribe link by federal law. It's actually mandated as part of what's called CAN spam. But I think if somebody wants to unsubscribe, they're going to find the unsubscribe link within it. And it may be for a very benign reason. Maybe they have multiple email accounts, and this is their work email account, and they want to receive that information on a different email account. So it's hard to tell. I think one of the things that as you look at your email marketing program, as you look at your e-newsletter, one of the bigger things that you have to consider is being able to offer choices to your patrons in what types of information they can receive from you. If you're set up with a system, and Mail2 does this, so forgive me for I'm kind of beating the Mail2 drum here, but we're able to actually provide different types of lists that people can subscribe into. So maybe they don't want donation information, but they weren't aware that if they wanted to manage their preferences, they could not receive donation information or volunteer information, but yet, oh, geez, I can still get information I can still get the monthly newsletter. Being able to offer patrons choices, in my opinion, prevents the one-click unsubscribe phenomenon. Are you ever going to get rid of it? No. I mean, people are going to say, I just simply don't want any more email from your organization. But offering them choices and allowing them to opt into or subscribe to certain types of information can help prevent the one-click unsubscribe phenomenon.
Perfect. I just saw all the 5 examples you used, none of them had that as their the first paragraph right up at the very top of the e-newsletter. So it makes it very easy, I think. But however, it's okay. I just wondered what you thought. Thanks.
Vicki Smith just done a text comment which it makes a really good point that, making unsubscribe transparent, that doesn't really specifically answer where you position it in the e-newsletter, but making unsubscribe transparent, creates a high trust model. Like, you're not trying to hide that away from people.
Right. Okay.
There's a lot of questions coming through, so I'll let Sabrina coordinate these. You there, Sabrina? Okay, nothing from Sabrina. Well, I have, hang on, I'm just going to go back. I think that Esther Green has a question. Esther.
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, is that Esther?
Yeah, hello, how are you?
Sorry, Esther. Great, right. Welcome. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Cool, hi John. I just had a question, Vicki. You mentioned earlier about newsletters being used to start a dialogue with your audiences. I just wondered if you had a couple of, top examples of how people were doing that.
I guess, things have all changed since social media, really, because often you'll direct the dialogue into your social media channels. So with some organisations, we've run a feature story that says, hey, we're discussing this over on Facebook at the moment, and directing people over there, which it can be successful or not successful depending on the type of organisation and the type of audience. The other thing, just simple things is like, inviting people to give feedback or to ask a question and then featuring them in the following issue.
Yeah.
That type of thing. I guess that's the sort of thing I'm talking about, really. So it's on a fairly basic level, but what you're doing is acknowledging the readers and saying, okay, we asked you last time for responses, you sent in your responses, and we've listened to them, and here they are, and we're going to share them with everyone.
Great. And just really quickly, sorry, what was that average open rate that you said?
Was that John's one or my one?
Yeah, I think so. I think yours.
So our one, which has come out of the benchmarking project at the moment at a very surface level, so without segmentation, is 25.6%. But John had the US stats over there. What were they, John?
Yeah, I generally see about a range, and again, your benchmark is basically right in the middle of that, anywhere from about 23 to about 27%. That's real typical.
Right.
That's good to know. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir. We have a couple of questions that we can probably fit in. Felicity is next. Felicity Connell. Sabrina, is Felicity on the line?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi. My question was to John, and it was around the finding and rewarding your highest engagers. I would find that because the opens and click-throughs and sharing information that we get, the receiver isn't necessarily aware that we're analysing their behaviour on that sort of level. I would find that a little bit creepy if someone in an organisation said, oh, we see that you've shared this with X number of people and we'd like to reward you for that. How do you... I'm just asking about, I suppose, the wording that you use for that, but to make it not seem so big brotherish and that we're watching you.
Yeah, that is definitely a fine line, and certainly you want to be careful with your wording. And generally speaking, it's not right down to, dear John, thank you for sharing this right at 5:05 p.m. last Sunday to your sixth friend on Facebook, that type of thing. But it's broader than that. The messaging within your marketing is really much more generic. Thank you for being engaged and helping us achieve our mission, or sharing this bit of information. It can come across as being big brotherish if you drive it down. You have the technology has the ability to drive down to that level, but clearly you want to temper your marketing messages with something that's more generic and softer than that. And that's generally what we see.
Cool.
It's not like not right down to the nth degree of what we have spy satellites and we can see exactly what we do. So.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is from Debbie.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm just wondering if you've got a business that does two different things, e.g. we have a theatre auditorium, plus we have cinemas. Should you split out your e-newsletters for each business? It's in the same building, but currently we just send one that covers everything.
So sorry, it was an auditorium, and what was the other thing?
Cinemas. So we do movies at one end and we have an auditorium at the other. So we do two lots of business.
Well, I'd be really looking at your target audience segments and the audiences for each of those venues. So if they're completely different audiences, then you need a different tone of voice for each. Then I would be splitting it out and having a communication branded for each of those. If you feel that the audience has got a very high crossover, I'd probably be having one e-newsletter and then sort of trying to build up the sign-up rate to that. And it also depends on your resourcing and things like that. So it really does depend, but it does sound like potentially there's room to have very distinct communications to distinct audiences.
So it's just about going and sending out a survey to ask those people that are on our database what they want, I suppose, is it?
Yeah, it's partly that too, and but it's also about getting any information you can about your audience. So that's sort of the wider issue of understanding who your audiences are for each of the different size of your business. And then, you know, your email newsletter comes in as part of that, as one of the communications methods by which you reach them. So you kind of, as with anything, you go back right to the core of defining who are you trying to reach and what are your objectives.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll just take one more question. I'm afraid it's a shame because, you know, we could go on for hours, but we'll grab Candice's question. Thanks, Candice.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, excellent. Hi. Okay, I'll try and keep mine quick. We are a national organisation that tours all around New Zealand, and we have multiple centres, 10 main centres, and then, you know, many more regional centres. So we do events in all of those different places. And I guess my question is, how much should the e-newsletter be generic nationally, and how much should we actually look at segmenting really detailed down to the individual regions, because of course there's this balance of wanting to inform what the organisation is doing as a whole, but also making it relevant. So I'm just always sort of struggling with how much I should customise based on certain attributes within an e-newsletter.
I mean, John, do you want to take this and perhaps talk about specific content for specific segments?
I missed about 2/3 of the question on the audio. Could I have you repeat the question?
The question is because we tour nationally, we've got lots of different events happening in different regions, and so I want to know how much I should balance information to everybody that's just about what's going on all around the organisation versus segmenting and customising based on what's really, really relevant to a particular person.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one.
Would dynamic content be the answer to this one, John?
Yeah. I think that could very well be part of it. Most email marketing systems today provide you with a means to do dynamic content based on basically targeting specific reader types, similar to a mail merge, like a Microsoft Office mail merge type thing, where you can actually place pieces of specific content that will only appear in your e-newsletter for certain recipient types that you define. So maybe it's a ticket purchaser to a musical show that you want them to see this type of image or this type of content for that. So there are technical ways to do that. Then I think from a broader perspective, because you have such a wide variety of different types of patrons, your e-newsletter is probably going to dabble into touching on as many of those as possible, but also making good use of links out to explore those perhaps different areas of your website that people are interested in. One thing that I do tell people quite often is don't be afraid of the click here for more information button. Don't feel like you have to put every word in your e-newsletter. People are very used to and attuned to clicking through to get more information on what interests them.
Right. Thank you, John. Thank you, Candice. Now, we're coming up to the end of the hour. We are just going to go over probably a couple of minutes just to warn you, and we're just going to wrap up now. I'm aware that there are a lot of questions, so sorry to those of you who didn't quite get your question answered, but feel free to email either myself or John, and you'll see at the final slide our email addresses are there, and we can answer any afterwards. I think John has to head off now, so thank you very much for your contribution, John. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the webinar. We really appreciate your generosity in sharing those examples with us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I have to sign off. I have another meeting, but yes, by all means, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to email.
Thanks very much. It's been fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, so carrying right along, I'm just going to give you 10 quick steps to creating your e-newsletter. So it's a process by which you have to really think about the different elements. So it's very good to do this systematically and not just go out there with a communication without thinking this through. And if you look at the examples that John gave us, and if you look at the consistent naming of the newsletters, the features, the careful thought that was going into the content and what it linked to, the purpose of the e-newsletter has been well thought through. You can see how much planning has gone into this. So just quickly, the first is to define your recipients. So is this going to everyone on your list, or as Debbie asked, is it, are we going to have different e-newsletters for each segment of our audience? So you really want to think about who this e-newsletter is for and understand its purpose and its offering. So how are you going to use it, and what are you offering the readers of the newsletter? Remember the example I put up earlier of the email sign-up page. What are the benefits to your readers of receiving this e-newsletter on a regular basis, and really be clear on that. And then you want to set some editorial principles, just like you would for any publication. So, about these are things like the tone of voice and what it's okay to talk about and not, that type of thing. So you want to go through that process, and you're probably liaising at that point with your PR department, anyone who's involved in producing publications for your organisation. Agree on that frequency. The frequency, again, is going to depend completely on the market. When the New Zealand String Quartet did that survey, people loved the 2-month frequency. They didn't want it any more, they didn't want it any less. 2 months is quite good if you've got limited resources. Any less, you're not top of mind enough. Any more, you're kind of scrabbling around each month to produce the content. But that will entirely depend on your situation. The tone of voice, so you're establishing a voice or an editorial personality, so you really want to think, is this serious, newsy, is it gossipy, is it fun, is it relaxed, that type of thing. Then you're going to think about how you're deploying this. So this is your email management system, which probably you've already got in place, so you're going to be using that. And you will probably need to create and design a template. So you may be using a template that exists within your email management system, or if you want to be really closely aligned with your branding, you're going to have someone develop a template for you. Planning your content and features, and as much as possible, find ways to streamline content. So if you update your blog every week, use one or two of the blog posts to link to from your e-newsletter. You don't have to create any additional content. If you're asking, the same question to all of the artistic team, and one is featured per month, send out a batch at once so that you get a whole lot of content ahead of time organised. And if you're putting up media releases once a month, use those as well, or video on your YouTube channel, utilise that content for your newsletter. Then you want to put in place a bit of a deployment schedule, really. So, 1 month out, we have to have decided what content is. 3 weeks out, we need to have briefed everyone on the content. 2 weeks out, we need to have it back to us. A week out, we needed to have edited it and found all the images and resized the images, that type of thing, because there's quite a bit of work involved, and the more you can streamline it, the better. And then don't forget to set up the tracking and reporting. So whether it's the standard reporting within your email management system that gives you the open rates, the click rates, that type of thing, or whether you're putting together specific tracking links using Google's URL builder and putting tracking links into your email so that when you go into Google Analytics you can track it. You need to think about what you want to measure each time. And then, as John was talking about, refining your email campaigns to reflect the results. So that's your 10-step process, which when the webinar, the PowerPoint is published and the video is published on the Creative New Zealand site, you can go back and get those in detail. And don't forget about mobile, and for those of you who came to the last mobile webinar, it's amazing how many emails are now being opened on mobile devices. If you've got a really good quality email management system, they'll be sorting that out for you. But just be aware that people may be sitting on their smartphone or their iPad and reading your email on that. And, here's some proof that people are reading emails on iPads from that earlier survey we mentioned. So just to wrap up, we talked about what an e-newsletter actually is and defined that clearly against an e-flyer and what were some of the elements of great e-newsletters. John then took you through some of those examples and the things that they have in common and some of the email marketing features that organisations are using now internationally. And then I've just taken you through 10 steps to creating a great e-newsletter. So e-newsletters are a superb tool for strengthening loyalty and building long-term relationships. but only if you do them right. And if you watch closely your open rates over time, you'll soon get a pretty clear indication if they start to drop that people are not enjoying the content or finding it relevant or getting enough value out of it. So watch those stats closely to see if people are really welcoming it as a regular read. And do go out and survey your e-newsletter recipients from time to time and invite them to tell you what they would like to see in the e-newsletter. A couple of resources here which you can grab once the PowerPoint is published in a couple of days. And our contact details here, and as John said, we're both happy to answer those burning questions that didn't quite get answered yet. Really enjoyed so many questions being asked. It was really great. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you, everybody, and especially to those who have stayed on the line. Thank you to Vicki and to John. That was really fantastic. And yes, please don't hesitate to follow up with any questions, and it was great to see so many questions coming through. Just a reminder that the next session is on the 25th of July. It's about running an effective paid online advertising campaign, and we'll be back to our standard Wednesday day. And also a reminder that today's session is being recorded and will be up online in a few days. So thanks so much for your participation, and we look forward to sharing with you next time.